Good morning. All right, story time. So we're going to go ahead and get started with today, Conversations with God by, it's an uncommon dialogue by Neale Donald Walsch. Okay. All right, in the spring, chapter 1. In the spring of 1992, it was around Easter as I recall. An extraordinary phenomenon occurred in my life. God began talking to me, through me. Let me explain. I was very unhappy during that period, personally, professionally, and emotionally. And my life was feeling like a failure on all levels. As I'd been in the habit for years of writing my thoughts down in letters, which I usually never delivered, I picked up my trusty yellow legal pad and began pouring out my feelings. This time, rather than another letter to another person I imagined to be victimizing me, I thought I'd go straight to the source, straight to the greatest victimizer of them all. I decided to write a letter to God. It was a spiteful, passionate letter, full of confusions, contortions, and condemnations. Okay. And a pile of angry questions. Why wasn't my life working? What would it take to get it to work? Why could I not find happiness in relationships? Was the experience of adequate money going to elude me forever? Finally, and most emphatically, what had I done to deserve a life of such continuing struggle? To my surprise, I scribbled out the last of my bitter, unanswerable questions and prepared to toss my pen aside. My hand remained poised over the paper, as if held there by some invisible force. Abruptly, the pen began moving on its own. I had no idea what I was about to write, but an idea seemed to be coming, so I decided to flow with it. Out came, do you really want an answer to all these questions, or are you just venting? I blinked, and then my mind came up with a reply. I wrote that down too. Both, I'm venting, sure, but if these questions have answers, I'd sure as hell like to hear them. You are sure as hell about a lot of things, but wouldn't it be nice to be sure as heaven? And I wrote, what is that supposed to mean? Before I knew it, I had begun a conversation, and I was not writing so much as taking dictation. That dictation went on for 3 years, and at the time, I had no idea where it was going. The answers to the questions I was putting on paper never came to me until the question was completely written and I put my own thoughts away. Often the answers came faster than I could write, and I found myself scribbling to keep up. When I became confused or lost, the feeling that the words were coming from somewhere else, I put the pen down and walked away from the dialogue until I again felt inspired. Sorry. That's the only word which truly fits. To return to the yellow legal pad and start transcribing again. These conversations are still going on as I write this, and much of it is found on the pages which follow. Pages which contain an astounding dialogue, which at first I disbelieved, and then assumed to be of personal value, but which I now understand was meant for more than just me. It was meant for you and everyone else who has come to this material. For my questions are your questions. I want you to get into this dialogue as soon as you can, because what's really important here is not my story, but yours. It is your life story which brought you here. It is your personal experience to which this material has relevance. Otherwise, you would not be here with it right now. So let's enter the dialogue with a question I had been asking for a very long time. How does God talk, and to whom? When I asked this question, here's the answer I received. I talk to everyone all the time. The question is not to whom do I talk, but who listens. Intrigued, I asked God to explain on this subject. Here's what God said. First, let's exchange the word talk with the word communicate. It's a much better word, a much fuller, more accurate one. When we try to speak to each other, me to you, you to me, we are immediately constricted by the unbelievable limitation of words. For this reason, I do not communicate by words alone. In fact, rarely do I do so. My most common form of communication is through feeling. Feeling is the language of the soul. If you want to know what's true for you about something, look to how you're feeling about it. Feelings are sometimes difficult to discover and often even more difficult to acknowledge. Yet hidden in your deepest feelings is your highest truth. The trick is to get to those feelings. I will show you how again if you wish. I told God that I did wish, but that right now I wished even more for a complete and full answer to my first question. Here's what God said. I also communicate with thought. Thought and feelings are not the same, although they can occur at the same time. In communicating with thought, I often use images and pictures. For this reason, thoughts are more effective than mere words as tools of communication. In addition to feelings and thoughts, I also use the vehicle of experience as a grand communicator. And finally, when feelings and thoughts and experience all fail, I use words. Words are really the least effective communicator. They are most open to misinterpretation and most often misunderstood. And why is that? It is because of what words are. Words are merely utterances, noises that stand for feelings, thoughts, and experience. They are symbols, signs, insignias. They are not truth. They are not the real thing. Words may help you understand something. Experience allows you to know, yet there are some things you cannot experience. So I have given you other tools of knowing, and these are called feelings, and so too, thoughts. Now, the supreme irony here is that you have all placed so much importance on the Word of God and so little on the experience. In fact, you place so little value on experience that when what you experience of God differs from what you've heard of God, you automatically discard the experience and own the words, when it should be just the other way around. Your experience and your feelings about a thing represent what you factually and intuitively know about that thing. Words can only seek to symbolize what you know and can often confuse what you know. These then are the tools with which I communicate, yet they are not the methods. For not all feelings, not all thoughts, not all experience, and not all words are from me. Many words have been uttered by others in my name. Many thoughts and many feelings have been sponsored by causes not of my direct creation. Many experiences result from them. The challenge is one of discernment. The difficulty is knowing the difference between messages from God and data from other sources. Discrimination is a simple matter with the application of a basic rule. Mine is always your highest thought, your clearest word, your grandest feeling. Anything less is from another source. Now the task of differentiation becomes easy, for it should not be difficult even for the beginning student to identify the highest, the clearest, and the grandest. Yet, will I give you these guidelines? The highest thought is always that thought which contains joy. The clearest words are those words which contain truth. The grandest feeling is that feeling which you call love. Joy, truth, love. These three are interchangeable, and one always leads to the other. It matters not in which order they are placed. Having with these guidelines determined which messages are mine and which have come from another source, the only question remaining is whether my messages will be heeded. Most of my messages are not. Some because they seem too good to be true. Others because they seem too difficult to follow. Many because they are simply misunderstood. Most because they are not received. My most powerful messenger is experience. And even this you ignore. Especially this you ignore. Your world would not be in its present condition were you to have simply listened to your experience. The result of your not listening to your experience is that keeping you reliving it over and over again. For my purpose will not be thwarted, nor my will be ignored. You will get the message sooner or later. I'm going to say that again. You will get the message sooner or later. I will not force you to, however. I will never coerce you, for I have given you a free will, the power to do as you choose, and I will never take that away from you, ever. And so I will continue sending you the same messages over and over throughout the millennia and to whatever corner of the universe you occupy. Endlessly will I send you my messages until you have received them and held them close, calling them your own. My messages will come in 100 forms, at 1,000 moments, across 1,000,000 years. You cannot miss them if you truly listen. You cannot ignore them once truly heard. Thus will our communication begin in earnest. For in the past, you have only talked to me, praying to me, interceding with me, beseeching me. Yet now, I can talk back to you, even as I'm doing here. How can I know this communication is from God? How do I know this is not my own imagination? Is the question. God's response. What would be the difference? Do you not see that I could just as easily work through your imagination as anything else? I will bring you the exact right thoughts, words, or feelings at any given moment, suited precisely to the purpose at hand, using one device or several. You will know these words are from me because you, of your own accord, have never spoken so clearly. Had you already spoken so clearly on these questions, you wouldn't be asking them now. Question: to whom does God communicate? Are there special people? Are there special times? All people are special, and all moments are golden. There is no person and there is no time one more special than another. Many people choose to believe that God communicates in special ways and only with special people. This removes the mass of the people from responsibility from hearing my message, much less receiving it, which is a whole nother matter, and allows them to take someone else's word for everything. You don't have to listen to me, for you've already decided that others have heard from me on every subject, and you have them to listen to. by listening to what other people think they heard me say. You don't have to think at all. This is the biggest reason for most people turning from my messages on a personal level. If you acknowledge that you are receiving my messages directly, then now you are responsible for interpreting them. It is far safer and much easier to accept the interpretation of others, even others who have lived 2,000 years ago, than seek to interpret the message you may very well be receiving in this moment now. Yet, I invite you to a new form of communication with God, a two-way communication. In truth, it is you who have invited me, for I have come to you in this form right now in answer to your call. Question: why do some people take Christ, for example, seem to hear more of your communication than others? Because some people are willing to actually listen. They are willing to hear, and they are willing to remain open to the communication even when it seems scary or crazy or downright wrong. Question: why we should listen to God even when what's being said seems wrong? Especially when it seems wrong. If you think you're right about everything, who needs to talk to God? Go ahead and act on all that you know. But notice that you've all been doing that since time began. And look at what shape the world is in. Clearly, you've missed something. Obviously, there's something you don't understand. That which you do understand must seem right to you, because right is a term you use to designate something with which you agree. What you've missed will, therefore, appear at first to be wrong. The only way to move forward on this is to ask yourself, what would happen if everything I thought was wrong is actually right? Every great scientist knows this. When what a scientist does is not working, a scientist sets aside all the assumptions and starts over. All great discoveries have been made from a willingness and ability to not be right. And that's what's needed here. You cannot know God until you've stopped telling yourself that you already know God. You cannot hear God until you stop thinking that you've already heard God. I cannot tell you my truth until you stop telling me yours. Question: but my truth about God comes from you. Who said so? Others. What others? Leaders, ministers, rabbis, priests, books, the Bible, for heaven's sake. Those are not authoritative sources. Question: they aren't? No. Then what is? Listen to your feelings. Listen to your highest thoughts. Listen to your experience. Whenever any one of these differ from what you've been told by your teachers or read in books, forget the words. Words are the least reliable purveyor of truth. There is so much I want to say to you, so much I want to ask. I don't know where to begin. For instance, why is it that you do not reveal yourself? If there really is a God, and you are it, why do you not reveal yourself in a way we can all understand? Why do you not reveal yourself in a way that we can all understand? I have done so over and over. I am doing so again right now. No, I mean by a method of revelation that is incontrovertible, that cannot be denied. Quite such as appearing right now before my eyes. I'm doing so right now. Where? Everywhere you look. No, I mean in an incontrovertible way, in a way no man can deny. What way would that be? In what form or shape would you have me appear? In the form or shape that you actually have. That would be impossible, for I have no form or shape you understand. I could adopt a form or a shape that you could understand, but then everyone would assume that what they have seen is the one and only form and shape of God, rather than a form or shape of God, one of many. People believe I am what they see me as, rather than what they do not see. But I am the great unseen, not what I cause myself to be in any particular moment. In a sense, I am what I am not. It is from the am notness that I come, and to it I always return. Yet when I come in one particular form or another, a form in which I think people can understand me, people assign me to that form forevermore. And should I come in any other form to any other people, the first say I did not appear to the second, because I did not look to the second as I did to the first, nor say the same thing. So how could it have been me? You see then, it matters not in what form or in what manner I reveal myself. Whatever manner I choose and whatever form I take, none will be incontrovertible. But if you did something that would evidence the truth of who you are beyond doubt or question, there are still those who would say it is of the devil or simply someone's imagination or any cause other than me. If I revealed myself as God Almighty, King of heaven and earth, and moved mountains to prove it, there are those who would say I must have been Satan. And such is as it should be. For God does not reveal God's self to God's self from or through outward observation, but through inward experience. And when inward experience has revealed God's self, outward observation is not necessary. And if outward observation is necessary, inward experience is not possible. If then revelation is requested, it cannot be had, for the act of asking is a statement that is not there. For the act of asking is a statement that it is not there, that nothing of God is now being revealed. Such a statement produces the experience. For your thought about something is creative, and your word is productive. And your thought and your word together are magnificently effective in giving birth to your reality. Therefore, shall you experience that God is not now revealed. For if God were, you would not ask God to be. Question: does that mean I cannot ask for something I want? Are you saying that praying for something actually pushes it away from us? This is a question which has been asked through the ages, and has been answered whenever it has been asked. Yet you have not heard the answer or will not believe. The question is answered again in today's terms and today's language. Thusly, you will not have that for which you ask, nor can you have anything you want. This is because your very request is a statement of lack. And your saying you want a thing only works to produce that precise experience, wanting, in your reality. The correct prayer is therefore never a prayer of supplication, but a prayer of gratitude. When you thank God in advance for that which you choose to experience in your reality, you in effect acknowledge that it is already there. In effect, thankfulness is thus the most powerful statement to God, an affirmation that even before you ask, I have answered. Therefore, never supplicate, appreciate. Question. But what if I am grateful to God in advance for something and it never shows up? That could lead to disillusionment and bitterness. Gratitude cannot be used as a tool to which to manipulate God, a device with which to fool the universe. You cannot lie to yourself. Your mind knows the truth of your thoughts. If you're saying, thank you, God, for such and all the while being very clear that it isn't true there in your present reality, you can't expect God to be less clear than you and so produce it for you. God knows what you know, and what you know is what appears in your reality. But how then can I be truly grateful for something I know is not there? Faith. If you have but the faith of a mustard seed, you shall move mountains. You come to know it is there because I said it is there. Because I said that even before you ask, I shall have answered. Because I said and have said to you in every conceivable way, through every teacher you can name, that whatsoever you shall choose, choosing it in my name, so shall it be. Question. Yet so many people say that their prayers have gone unanswered. No prayer. And a prayer is nothing more than a fervent statement of what is so. And a prayer is nothing more than a fervent statement of what is so. No prayer goes unanswered. Every prayer, every thought, every statement, every feeling is creative. To the degree that it is fervently held as truth, to that degree will it be made manifest in your experience. When it is said that a prayer has not been answered, what has in actuality happened is that the most fervently held thought, word, or feeling has become operable. Yet what you must know, and here is the secret, is that always it is the thought behind the thought, what might be called the sponsoring thought, that is the controlling thought. If therefore you beg and supplicate, there seems a much smaller chance that you will experience what you think you are choosing, because the sponsoring thought behind every supplication is that you do not have it now, that you do not have what you wish. That sponsoring thought becomes your reality. The only sponsoring thought which could override this thought is the thought held in faith that God will grant whatever you ask without fail. Some people have such faith, but very few. The process of prayer becomes much easier when, rather than having to believe that God will always say yes to every request, One understands intuitively that the request itself is not even necessary. Then the prayer is a prayer of thanksgiving. It is not a request at all, but a statement of gratitude for what is so. When you say that a prayer is a statement of what is so, are you saying that God does nothing? That everything which happens after a prayer is a result of the prayer's action? If you believe that God is some omnipotent being who hears all prayers, says yes to some and no to others, and maybe but not now to the rest, you are mistaken. By what rule of thumb would God decide? If you believe that God is the creator and decider of all things in your life, you are mistaken. God is the observer, not the creator. And God stands ready to assist you in living your life, but not in the way you might expect. It is not God's function to create or uncreate the circumstances or conditions of your life. God created you in the image and likeness of God. You have created the rest through the power of God, through the power God has given you. God created the process of life and life itself as you know it. Yet God gave you free choice to do with life as you will. You are living your life the way you are living your life, and I have no preference in the matter. This is the grand illusion in which you have engaged, that God cares one way or the other what you do. I do not care what you do, and that is hard for you to hear. Yet you do care what your children do when you send them out to play. Yet you do care what your children do when you send them out to play. Is it a matter of consequence to you whether they play tag or hide and seek or pretend? No, it is not. Because you know they are perfectly safe. You have placed them in an environment which you consider friendly and very okay. Of course, you will always hope that they do not, hurt themselves. And if they do, you will be right there to help them. Heal them, allow them to feel safe again, to be happy again, to go and play again another day. But whether they choose to hide and seek or pretend will not matter to you the next day either. You will tell them, of course, which games are dangerous to play. But you cannot stop your children from doing dangerous things. Not always, not forever, not in every moment from now until death. It is the wise parent who knows this. Yet the parent never stops caring about the outcome. It is this dichotomy, not caring deeply about the process, but caring deeply about the result, that comes close to describing the dichotomy of God. Yet God, in a sense, does not even care about the outcome. Not the ultimate outcome. This is because the ultimate outcome is assured. And this is the second great illusion of man, that the outcome of life is in doubt. It is this doubt about ultimate outcome that has created your greatest enemy, which is fear. For if you doubt outcome, then you must doubt Creator. You must doubt God. And if you doubt God, you must live in fear and guilt all your life. If you doubt God's intentions and God's ability to produce this ultimate result, then how can you ever relax? How can you ever truly find peace? Yet God has full power to match intentions with results. You cannot and will not believe in this, even though you claim that God is all powerful. And so you have to create in your imagination a power equal to God in order that you may find a way for God's will to be thwarted. And so you have created in your mythology the being you call the devil. You have even imagined a God at war with this being, thinking that God solves problems the way you do. Finally, you have actually imagined that God could lose this war? All of this violates everything